The large conference room aboard the Galactic Alliance flagship, Eternal Light, buzzed with tension. Delegates from 12 different star systems stood in their designated areas, all eyes fixed on the entry doors. Today marked the first official meeting between humanity and the assembled species of the known galaxy. Ambassador Krell adjusted his ceremonial robe, the 6 fingers of his pale blue hand smoothing down the fabric. Remember, he spoke to his aides, these humans have only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. They are newcomers. Be patient with their ignorance. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. 5 humans entered, led by Captain James Miller of the United Earth ship Discovery. He walked with confidence, his back straight, and his eyes taking in every detail of the alien assembly. Behind him came Dr. Lisa Gray, their chief scientist, along with 3 security officers. "Welcome to the Galactic Alliance," Krell said, his translator converting his musical language into standard human English. "We have watched your species with interest for many cycles." Miller nodded. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we thank you for this invitation." His voice was deep and clear. "We hope this marks the beginning of a peaceful relationship between our worlds." Several of the alien delegates whispered among themselves. The humans looked so fragile. Their skin was thin, with no scales or protective outer layer. They had no claws, no natural weapons. "Please, join us at the central table," Krell gestured. "We have prepared a small demonstration of technologies we might share with Earth as a token of goodwill." As they moved toward the center of the room, Dr. Gray studied the aliens with fascination. Some floated rather than walked. Others moved on multiple legs. The variety of life forms was beyond anything humans had imagined. At the table, a small device was brought forward by Torm, the Alliance's technology specialist. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he activated the device. "This is a simple energy converter," Torm explained. "It can transform waste material into clean power." Miller leaned forward with interest. This could solve Earth's remaining energy problems. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the far side of the room. 3 delegates from the Arcturus system broke away from their group, pulling small weapons from hidden pockets in their robes. "No alliance with primitives," one shouted, aiming directly at the humans. Before the security teams could react, bright beams of energy shot across the room. 2 hit Miller squarely in the chest, while another struck Dr. Gray's shoulder. The human security officers returned fire with their conventional weapons, creating chaos in the chamber. Alliance guards quickly subdued the attackers, but the damage was done. Krell rushed to the fallen humans, expecting to find them dead or dying. Energy weapons of that type typically caused instant organ failure in most species. To his shock, Miller was still conscious, gasping in pain but alive. Dr. Gray had already pushed herself to a sitting position, clutching her wounded shoulder. "Impossible," whispered Torm, scanning the humans with a medical device. The energy discharge should have stopped their biological functions completely. Miller coughed, a thin line of blood trickling from his mouth. "Is everyone else okay?" he managed to ask. The Alliance medical team arrived, surrounding the injured humans. They worked quickly, applying emergency treatments while murmuring in surprise to each other. "Their cells are already beginning to repair," one medic said in disbelief. "I've never seen anything like this response pattern." As they carried the humans to the medical bay, Krell turned to his senior advisor. "This changes everything. These humans, they resist energy weapons somehow. The Council must be informed immediately." In the chaos of the attack, no one noticed the small recording device activated by one of the attackers. Across the galaxy, others were already receiving images of humans surviving what should have been certain death. The first contact had not gone as planned, but it had revealed something that would forever change humanity's place in the galactic community. 3 days after the attack, the medical bay of the Galactic Alliance flagship hummed with activity. Dr. Lisa Gray sat on the edge of a floating examination platform, watching as Torm passed a scanner over her healing shoulder wound. "Remarkable," The four-eyed alien scientist muttered. The damaged cells have not only repaired, they've developed a crystalline structure I've never seen before. He adjusted the scanner settings and frowned. And this pattern, it's as if your cells have created a shield against the exact energy frequency it struck you. Lisa smiled weakly. That's how our immune system works with diseases. We adapt. Across the room, Captain Miller was already standing, refusing the medical staff's attempts to make him rest. His chest still showed angry red marks where the energy beams had hit, but he moved with only slight discomfort. "How are the others?" Miller asked, walking over to Lisa and Torm. "Officer Bell will recover fully," Lisa replied. "Officer Davis didn't make it. The beam hit directly over his heart." Miller's face darkened. "We need to understand these weapons better, and why some of us survived while others didn't." Ambassador Krell entered the medical bay, his usually perfect posture now slightly stooped with worry. Behind him followed a group of senior Alliance officials, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely hidden fear. "Captain Miller," Krell said, "the Council demands answers about your species' unusual response to energy weapons. It has disturbed many of our members." Miller crossed his arms. "We're as surprised as you are, Ambassador. On Earth, we've never encountered weapons like these." Torm stepped forward, excitement visible in all four of his eyes. "I believe I can explain what's happening." He pressed a button on his scanner, projecting images of human cells into the air. Human DNA contains extraordinary repair mechanisms. When damaged by the energy weapons, instead of simply dying, their cells analyze the energy pattern and create defensive structures against it. The officials murmured among themselves. One tall, insect-like being clicked its mandibles in what seemed like agitation. "This is most concerning," the insectoid said. "No species we have encountered has this ability. It suggests humans could become resistant to our primary defense technologies." Lisa stood up, wincing slightly. "This isn't an offensive capability. It's just how our bodies heal." Torm continued, his voice growing more excited. "I compared their genetic structure to our database. Humans evolved on a planet with higher background radiation than most habitable worlds. Their DNA repair mechanisms are more advanced as a result." Miller watched the aliens' reactions carefully. He could see the shift in the room, from scientific curiosity to strategic assessment. "With your permission," Lisa said, addressing Krell, "I'd like to conduct research with Torm. If we understand this process better, it could benefit everyone. Imagine medical treatments that could help all species recover from energy damage." Krell hesitated. "I will allow this research, but under strict observation." After the officials left, Miller pulled Lisa aside. "You know what they're thinking, don't you? They're afraid of us now." Lisa nodded. "I noticed. But I also saw how fascinated Torm was. We have allies here as well as potential enemies." What neither of them knew was that on the lowest deck of the ship, Alliance military officers were already reviewing footage of the attack, measuring human recovery rates, and designing new weapon prototypes. And far across the galaxy, in a secret meeting chamber, the leader of the attackers showed the recordings to his followers. "These humans," he hissed, "are more dangerous than we thought. They cannot be allowed to spread through our territories. If conventional weapons won't stop them, we must find something that will." Back in the medical bay, Torm's scanner beeped with new results. He stared at the readings in disbelief. "Dr. Gray," he called, his voice trembling slightly. "You need to see this. The crystalline structures in your cells. They're growing stronger." Red emergency lights bathed the colony control room in an eerie glow. Commander Sam Wilson gripped the edge of the command console, his knuckles white as he watched the display. 12 alien ships had appeared without warning in orbit around New Haven, the first human colony outside the solar system. "They're not responding to hails," reported Communications Officer Reed. Her voice remained steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. "No identification signals matching Alliance protocols." "Evacuate the civilian sectors," Wilson ordered. Get everyone to the underground shelters. He turned to his security chief. How many defense ships do we have? 3 patrol vessels, sir. The Marion, the Washington, and the Caro. They're already moving to intercept. Outside, in the blue-green sky of New Haven, flashes of light marked the beginning of the battle. The colony had been established just 8 months ago, its defenses still under construction. Sir, Reed called out, receiving a message, audio only. A harsh, clicking voice filled the control room. Your kind does not belong among the stars. Consider this a cleansing. Wilson's face hardened. Inform Earth immediately. We're under attack by what appears to be Alliance extremists. On the main view screen, they watched as the Washington erupted in flames, overwhelmed by energy weapons fire from multiple directions. The Marion managed to disable one enemy ship before being crippled. Only the Caro continued fighting, its captain executing maneuvers that seemed impossible for a vessel that size. They're landing troops, the sensor operator announced. Northern quadrant, near the power station. Wilson grabbed his sidearm. I'm heading to the North Defense Post. Lieutenant Parker, you have command here. 20 minutes later, Wilson and a squad of 15 colony security officers crouched behind makeshift barriers. Ahead of them, 8 alien attackers advanced, firing energy weapons that scorched the earth and melted metal. Conventional rounds only, Wilson reminded his people. Save ammunition. Make every shot count. The fighting was brutal and quick. Within minutes, 5 of Wilson's officers lay dead or severely wounded. The aliens seemed surprised by how effective simple projectile weapons were against their armor, but their energy weapons gave them a deadly advantage at range. Officer Taylor took a direct hit to his chest, but to everyone's surprise, remained conscious and firing. Wilson himself felt the burning agony of an energy blast grazing his arm, the skin blackening instantly. Fall back to position 2, Wilson shouted. As they retreated, he noticed something strange. The pain in his arm was already subsiding, changing from sharp agony to a dull throb. When they reached the secondary defense line, Wilson checked his wounded arm. The blackened skin had taken on an odd metallic sheen where the energy weapon had struck. Commander, Taylor called, pointing to his own chest wound. Look at this. The direct hit that should have killed him was now covered with the same metallic-looking tissue. Understanding dawned on Wilson. It's happening here too, just like the reports from the Alliance ship. Over the next hour, the pattern became clear. Those who survived the initial energy blasts seemed to become more resistant with each hit. By the time reinforcements arrived from Earth 7 hours later, the colonists had pushed the attackers back to their landing site. The leader of the alien force, now captured, stared at Wilson with all 4 of his eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible, he hissed through his translator. You should not be standing. Our weapons don't work as well as you expected. Wilson finished for him. Maybe next time, you'll consider talking before shooting. News of the attack spread quickly through both human space and the Alliance. Videos showing humans continuing to fight after being hit by energy weapons circulated widely, causing alarm among many alien species. In a secure room on Earth, General Thompson reviewed the footage from New Haven. It's confirmed then, he said to his staff. Our people adapt faster with each exposure. This isn't just an isolated incident. An aide handed him a tablet. Sir, Alliance representatives are requesting an emergency meeting. They're calling it a security concern. Thompson nodded grimly. I bet they are. 6 months after the New Haven attack, the gray walls of Earth's Military Science Division buzzed with activity. Dr. Lisa Gray studied the holographic displays floating before her, showing cellular structures that no human had possessed before first contact. The adaptation is spreading, she explained to General Mike Thompson. Even humans who haven't been directly exposed are showing early signs of resistance. It's as if the information is being passed genetically, through some kind of quantum entanglement we don't yet understand. Thompson, a stocky man with a perpetual frown, pointed to one of the displays. Can we accelerate it? Sir, Lissa looked up sharply. The Alliance isn't unified anymore. Our intelligence suggests at least 3 major factions are considering us a threat. If they attack again, I want our people ready. Torm, who had defected to Earth after being labeled a human sympathizer, moved his 4-eyed gaze between them. What the General suggests is possible. Controlled exposure could strengthen the resistance, but there are risks. Lisa sighed. Torm is right. We could create exposure chambers with graduated energy signatures. Start low, build tolerance slowly. Thompson nodded. Make it happen. Volunteer basis only, starting with military personnel. Across the room, Captain Miller entered. His chest now bore silvery patches where he had been hit during the first contact incident. Those patches had spread, covering nearly 30% of his body. The council meeting didn't go well, Miller reported. Ambassador Krell tried his best, but the military factions are gaining influence. They're afraid. They should be, Thompson muttered. Miller shook his head. Fear leads to bad decisions. We need allies, not enemies. Later that day, Lisa supervised the first controlled exposure session. 20 soldiers sat in specialized chambers as carefully calibrated energy beams, much weaker than weapons, washed over them. Each chamber contained a different frequency. Vital signs stable, a technician reported. No adverse reactions. Lisa watched through the observation window as the soldier's skin began to develop the now familiar metallic sheen. The process was working faster than she had predicted. Dr. Gray, Torm said quietly, there's something you should see. He handed her a datapad. I intercepted this from Alliance communications. The screen showed technical specifications for new weapon designs, energy weapons with rapidly shifting frequencies designed specifically to overcome human adaptation. They're already working to counter our resistance, Lisa whispered. Some are, Torm agreed. Others believe your kind represents the next stage in galactic evolution. The divide grows deeper every day. 3 weeks into the adaptation program, results exceeded all expectations. Volunteers now demonstrated 70% resistance to standard energy weapons. The metallic patches had become a badge of honor among military personnel, with some even exposing themselves to higher levels than recommended. In his private office, Thompson reviewed reports from the program with grim satisfaction. A knock at the door interrupted him. Come in. A junior officer entered, looking nervous. Sir, our long-range scanners have detected unusual activity at the edge of the solar system. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL travel. Thompson's expression didn't change. Alliance. We believe so, sir. At least 30 vessels, possibly more. Inform all commands. Condition read. Thompson stood up. And get me Captain Miller and Dr. Gray. As alarms began to sound throughout the facility, Lisa and Torm were running final tests on a new adaptation chamber. It's happening, isn't it? Lisa asked, seeing the urgency in the movements of personnel outside the lab. Torm's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme stress in his species. The hardliners have made their decision. Admiral Vex leads them. How bad will it be? They will not stop until they believe the human threat is contained. They cannot accept a species that renders their primary weapons obsolete. Lisa's hand unconsciously moved to her shoulder, touching the fully healed spot where she had been shot during first contact. The skin there now had a faint bluish-silver gleam. Then they'll learn what happens when you cornered humans, she said. We don't just adapt. We evolve. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Alliance Council fell silent as Ambassador Krell finished speaking. His impassioned plea for peace had lasted nearly an hour, but the faces of the 53 species representatives showed little change. Admiral Vex rose from his seat, his tall, thin body seeming to unfold like a predatory insect. His skin was ash gray and his eyes, 3 of them, glowed with a cold yellow light. The ambassador's words are touching, Vex said, his voice surprisingly soft. But they ignore reality. These humans do not merely adapt to injury like all life forms. They transform. They become immune to our most advanced technologies. Krell raised his six-fingered hand, which is why cooperation is our best path forward. Their adaptation abilities could revolutionize medicine throughout the galaxy. Or warfare, Vex countered. Imagine humans with full immunity to energy weapons spreading through our territories. Within generations, they could become unstoppable. On the other side of the chamber, Representative Moole of the Trading Worlds Coalition stood. My people have already established profitable exchanges with Earth. Their resource needs complement our own. This talk of threat is overblown. The debate raged for hours, but the outcome was becoming clear. The council was splitting into factions, those who feared humans and those who saw opportunity in alliance with them. When the final vote came, it was close but decisive. 30 species voted to classify humans as a protected but contained species, effectively limiting their expansion. 23 voted against the measure. Krell immediately filed a formal protest. As he left the chamber, a junior aide hurried to his side. Ambassador, the aide whispered, Admiral Vex's fleet departed 2 days ago. Before the vote. Krell froze. Where? Earth sector. Thousands of light-years away, Earth's orbital defense stations blared with warning signals. General Thompson stood in the command center, watching as 37 Alliance warships emerged from faster-than-light travel. All civilians to shelters, he ordered. Deploy our ships in defensive formation Delta. Earth's fleet, 20 ships of varying sizes, moved into position. Captain Miller commanded the flagship, the newly commissioned UES Defender. Admiral Vex is hailing us, sir, the communications officer reported. Miller nodded. On screen. Vex's alien face appeared, yellow eyes unblinking. Captain Miller, I come with the authority of the Alliance Council to establish quarantine protocols for Earth and all human colonies. We've received no such notification from Ambassador Krell, Miller replied calmly. Until we do, we must ask you to maintain your current position. The time for diplomacy has ended, Vex said. You will comply or be forced into compliance. The screen went dark. Seconds later, energy beams lanced out from the Alliance ships, striking Earth's outer defense satellites. Return fire, Miller ordered. Target their weapons systems only. The battle quickly intensified. Alliance ships fired volley after volley of energy weapons. To their shock, Earth's smaller fleet held position, their hulls absorbing damage that should have destroyed them. Their ships are coated with the same material as their adapted skin, one of Vex's officers reported, panic evident in his voice. Our standard weapons are losing effectiveness with each strike. Vex hissed with frustration. Deploy the frequency-shifting cannons. They cannot adapt to what constantly changes. On the Defender, Miller watched as new, pulsing beams began cutting through their defenses. They've modified their weapons, his tactical officer shouted. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. Miller grabbed a communication link. Dr. Gray, they've countered our adaptations. We need options. In her laboratory beneath Earth's surface, Lisa and Torm worked frantically, analyzing data from the battle. The shifting frequencies, Torm said. If we can predict the pattern. We don't have time. Lisa cut in. We need something more radical. She turned to a sealed chamber where their most advanced adaptation experiments had been conducted. Inside, volunteers had been exposed to dozens of energy types simultaneously. Get me Captain Miller again, she said. Tell him to pull back the fleet. We're implementing Project Phoenix. Above Earth, the battle turned against the human forces. 6 ships had been destroyed, and the orbital defense stations were failing. As Vex prepared to declare victory, a message reached him. Ambassador Krell had been arrested by Alliance security forces for attempting to warn Earth of the attack. The news created instant confusion among Vex's coalition, with 3 ships immediately withdrawing from the battle. It doesn't matter, Vex told his officers. The humans cannot withstand our new weapons. Victory is inevitable. He had no way of knowing that deep beneath Earth's surface, Lisa Gray was about to prove him very, very wrong. Captain Miller crouched behind a damaged bulkhead aboard Admiral Vex's flagship, the Dominance. Beside him, Dr. Lisa Gray checked the energy readings on her handheld scanner, while Officer Wilson kept watch. "Two guards at the end of this corridor," Wilson whispered, both armed with the new frequency-shifting weapons. Their mission was desperate: infiltrate the Dominance, rescue Ambassador Krell, and, if possible, disable the prototype weapon that Vex planned to use against Earth. They had boarded during the chaos of battle, using a stealth shuttle while the Alliance fleet was focused on Earth's defenses. "Your adaptive shielding is holding," Lisa told Miller, pointing to the silvery patches covering his skin. "But these new weapons will eventually break through. We can't take direct hits." Miller nodded. "No direct confrontation then. Wilson, can we access the environmental systems?" 10 minutes later, a section of the corridor filled with dense smoke as the humans triggered an emergency system malfunction. The alien guards moved forward to investigate, breathing apparatus covering their faces. They never saw Wilson drop from a maintenance hatch in the ceiling behind them. With the guards neutralized, the team moved deeper into the massive ship. Lisa's scanner led them toward the detention level where Krell was being held. "Curious," she said, studying the readings. "The ship's interior is lined with an energy-dampening material. It's similar to the crystalline structures our bodies develop during adaptation. They're protecting themselves from their own weapons," Miller realized. "They're afraid of the technology they've created." When they reached the detention level, they found Krell in a high-security cell, his normally blue skin pale with stress. "Captain Miller," the ambassador said in disbelief as the force field deactivated. "How did you?" "No time to explain." Miller cut him off. "We need to move. Now." Krell stood shakily. "Vex has lost control of the Alliance. Half the Council didn't support this attack. When word spreads of his actions, it won't matter if his new weapon deploys." Lisa interrupted. "Ambassador, do you know where they're keeping it?" Krell's expression darkened. "The Sundering." "Yes. 2 decks up, in the main weapons bay, but it's heavily guarded." As they made their way upward, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. "They've discovered our presence," Wilson said, checking his weapon. Miller's communication device crackled to life. General Thompson's voice came through, broken by static. "Miller, Project Phoenix. Launching now. Get clear of the flagship." "General, we're still aboard. We found Krell and are heading for the weapon." "Negative. Too dangerous. Phoenix is." The transmission cut off. Lisa grabbed Miller's arm. "We need to see what's happening." They found a viewport and looked out at the battle raging around them. What they saw made no sense at first. Earth's remaining ships were retreating, but behind them came a new vessel unlike any they had seen before. It was smaller than the others, but surrounded by a strange, shimmering field. "Project Phoenix," Lisa whispered. "They've done it." The vessel accelerated toward the Alliance fleet, directly into the path of their energy weapons. Beams from dozens of ships struck it simultaneously. Instead of exploding, the ship absorbed the energy. Then, impossibly, it redirected it outward in a massive pulse that washed over the Alliance fleet. Ships went dark, their systems overloaded. "It's the volunteers," Lisa explained, her voice filled with awe. "The ones who underwent the most extensive adaptation protocols. They're not just resistant to energy weapons, they can redirect the energy." Alarms blared louder as the Dominance began losing power. Through the viewport, they watched more Phoenix vessels emerge from Earth's atmosphere, each crewed by highly adapted humans who had volunteered for the experimental program. "We need to find that weapon before they can activate it manually," Miller said. They fought their way to the weapons bay, finding it in chaos. Alliance technicians scrambled to bring backup systems online while security forces established defensive positions. At the center of the bay stood the Sundering, a massive cannon with a pulsing core that shifted through colors like an oil slick in sunlight. Torm was already there, having infiltrated separately. The alien scientist worked frantically at a control panel, his 4 eyes darting between screens. The weapon's failsafes are disabled. He called out when he saw them. It's preparing to fire on Earth's major population centers. I can't stop the sequence remotely. Miller looked at Lisa. She nodded, understanding his unspoken question. Do it, she said. Miller stepped forward, placed his hands directly on the weapon's energy core, and did what humans now did best. He began to adapt. The Grand Assembly Hall of the rebuilt Galactic Alliance headquarters fell silent as Captain James Miller walked to the center platform. 1 year had passed since the battle that history now called the Adaptation War. Representatives from all 87 species of the Alliance rose to their feet in a show of respect that would have been unimaginable 12 months earlier. Miller's appearance had changed dramatically. The silvery crystalline patches that once covered portions of his skin had spread and merged, giving him a metallic sheen that caught the light as he moved. He was the living embodiment of humanity's evolution. Representatives of the Alliance, Miller began, his voice steady. 1 year ago today, we stood at the edge of destruction. Today, we gather as partners in a new era of galactic cooperation. The memory of that final confrontation remained vivid in Miller's mind. When he had placed his hands on the sundering weapon aboard Vex's flagship, the pain had been beyond anything he had experienced. The weapon's constantly shifting energy frequencies had overwhelmed his body's adaptive capabilities, at first. But in those crucial moments, as the weapon charged to fire at Earth, something unexpected happened. Miller's cells didn't just adapt to one frequency. They began adapting to the pattern itself. The metallic structures in his skin grew and changed, forming a network that predicted and countered each shift before it occurred. The sundering had overloaded, its energy feeding back into itself. The resulting explosion had been contained thanks to Torm's quick action, but the weapon was destroyed completely. The research team led by Dr. Lisa Gray and scientist Torm has made remarkable discoveries. Miller continued, gesturing to his colleagues seated at the front of the assembly. Lisa stood, her skin showing similar but less extensive metallic patterns than Miller's. Our studies confirm that human adaptive capabilities have stabilized, she explained. The changes are inheritable, but not unlimited. We cannot become invulnerable, merely highly resistant to energy-based technologies. Torm joined her. More importantly, we have developed medical applications that can transfer these benefits to other species. Already, 23 Alliance worlds have begun treatment programs for victims of energy weapon injuries. From his position of honor, Ambassador Krell watched with satisfaction. The Alliance had been transformed. Admiral Vex and his followers had been removed from power, replaced by those who valued cooperation over fear. The human ability to adapt is not unique in the biological sense, Miller said. All life adapts over time. What makes humans different is the speed of our adaptation and our willingness to share what we learn. He gestured to a group of human and alien scientists seated together. Our joint research teams have already developed new technologies based on the energy adaptive properties of human cells. Clean power generation, medical breakthroughs, protective systems that don't require weapons. In the year since the war, humans had been fully accepted into the Alliance. Earth ships now traveled freely through Alliance space, and the first joint human-alien colonies had been established on 3 planets. We could have used our adaptation to build better weapons, Miller said. Instead, we chose to build better shields, not just for ourselves, but for all. The assembly hall erupted in applause. Even those species that had initially feared humans now recognized the benefits of alliance over conflict. After the ceremony, Miller met with Lisa, Torm, and General Thompson in a quiet garden overlooking the capital city. The adaptation continues to spread naturally through the human population, Lisa reported. Estimates suggest 90% will show resistance within 3 generations, even without direct exposure. Thompson nodded. And the Phoenix program. Those volunteers have become something new, Torm said. Their ability to not just resist but channel energy has opened scientific possibilities we never imagined. Miller looked up at the stars becoming visible in the evening sky. What happens when we encounter the next challenge? Something beyond energy weapons. Lisa smiled. We'll adapt to that too. It's what we do. In the distance, a ship rose from the spaceport, the first of a new class of exploration vessels. Its crew was mixed. Humans with their adaptive abilities, and aliens with their own unique strengths. Together, they would push further into the unknown regions of the galaxy. The fear is gone, Thompson observed. They see our adaptation as an asset now, not a threat. Because we showed them it wasn't just our bodies that could adapt, Miller replied. It was our thinking. We chose cooperation over dominance. As darkness fell, the four friends raised glasses in a toast to the future, a future where humanity's greatest strength wasn't the ability to withstand energy weapons, but the wisdom to use that ability for the benefit of all.